So you've got your work bisque fired, and now you're ready to glaze. Everyone knows by this point that glazing is the second part of this process. But why do you even want to glaze in the first place? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, if I've got a vase like this, and I glaze the inside, it's going to make it a lot easier to clean afterward, and it's going to help it to hold water. The glaze will form a seal inside of this vase that is watertight. Okay. The other reason why I want to do this glazing process is because, see this tile? This has a black slip underneath, and look at how much that black darkened. It really pops with that clear glaze underneath. Also, this plain black slip is very dry, and it's going to get really dirty. It's just going to look gross over time. So it's going to help clean up also. For beginning students, there are several rules about glazing that must be followed. They must be followed. First of all, you need to be glazing on bisqueware, not greenware. And if you get confused, you might not want to do this with a piece of greenware, but I can hit this and it's making a noise. I know it's been bisque fired. This piece, maybe I'm not so sure. Clunk, clunk, clunk. That's number one scratch test. If I can scratch through the bottom, I know that that must not have been bisque fired yet. This piece here, ooh, sounds horrible, right? And it's not scratching through. That's been bisque fired and it's ready to be glazed. If I glaze right on this, there's a good chance that it's going to blow up in the kiln, destroy not only my work, but get all over the kiln inside and destroy parts of the kiln and other students' work. So I don't want to be that student, right? Next step, no glaze on the bottom of your piece, because glaze melts in the kiln and it's going to stick to whatever it's touching, and it's not floating in the kiln, so it's going to touch something. So this student thought, oh, well, I didn't glaze the bottom, and with a wash, it's fine to wash it on the bottom and then wipe it off. But it didn't stand up, so they just laid it on its side, but neglected to wipe off some glaze from the rim of this hat, and therefore it stuck. So this student thought they were getting away with something by, not having any glaze on the bottom, technically, but in the kiln, it had to rest like this, and they knew that too, and therefore the piece got stuck. So you don't want your piece sticking to things you don't want it sticking to in that kiln, because you're going to be in for disappointment. So that's rule number 2. The next rule is try it and see what happens. Test things out. But this is a conditional rule. It's all based on the condition that you take good notes. So have a good notebook at hand at all times and write down what you did, how you did it, how you applied it, how thick you think it was. Was it 1 brush coat? Was it 2? This test tile, I realized this is a little bit cloudy. I put it on too thick, and I did 2 coats, so I'm only going to do 1 next time. So always test on pieces that you don't care too much about, and then save those last ones to the end and glaze them up as you see fit. It's also good practice to glaze all at once separately from your working process, because dust getting onto this piece is going to mess up your glaze. Okay, newspaper is good. Gloves, if you have them, if you can find them, are good, because some of these, like the red iron wash, will stain everything in its path that it touches, including your hands. Okay, so here's my setup. I've got my, of course, work to be glazed. I have 2 rinse waters, a glaze, and my red iron wash. And that's going to vary depending on what you've planned out. But if I'm going to be using both of these, the clear glaze and the red iron wash, remember what I said about the red iron is it stains everything. So I want a separate rinse container for that, and I want a separate brush also for that. And for the wash, I can use just like a funky whatever brush. for the glaze, I'm going to want something a little nicer, hopefully, to apply glaze with. I also need some kind of a stirring utensil, and this has got to be a dedicated stirring utensil. If you grab it out of your kitchen drawer, keep it out of your kitchen drawer after you use it. I don't want to be held liable if anything weird happens and you consume some glaze. Don't consume this glaze. When it's fired, it's all fine to drink out of whatever, but until that point, you don't want to mix your food with your glaze materials. So a whisk is fine. A paint stir stick from Home Depot works great too. You can just grab one of those while they're not looking, and you're good to go. So it's really good practice to start out with a clean sponge. You wring that sponge out and just wipe off the entire surface. Don't soak, don't saturate your piece, otherwise it's not going to absorb the glaze. But what you want to do is you just want to wipe over the entire surface to make sure that there's no clay dust, nothing weird, no dust from outside blowing around onto your work that's going to interfere with the glaze getting where you want it on your pot. You know, this one I'm probably going to use a wash on the outside. In fact, I know I am. I planned ahead, and I know that is a fact. That's a good thing to do, is plan ahead a little bit. And I really don't need to wash the outside with this clean sponge because a wash is less finicky, and it's going to adhere pretty much no matter what. It's going to stain it. But the glaze, I'm going to put a glaze on the inside here, and I'm going to do that before I stain. And I really need to get that pretty cleaned out. So I've got right here my Cone 6 clear glaze. Pop the top off, and if I tilt it, it's probably, oh yeah, see how watery it is on the top? It separates out. Okay, so first thing I need to do when I start glazing, scoop down. This might take a little doing, and I want to scoop all this stuff up and mix it all together. And this might take a little time, so I may edit this video for your so you don't have to watch this, but you're going to have to do it, and it's going to take some time, and you want it to all integrate. This glaze has been formulated with something called CMC that I put into it. That's short for carboxymethyl cellulose. Feel free to look that up. It's an organic compound that helps you to brush glazes on. It helps it flow smoothly, but you can see this is not flowing really nicely right now. I really need to dig down. This is going to take about 5 minutes at least, and I'll come back and I'll show you what it needs to look like, and you're going to have to get it to that point yourself before you start brushing this glaze on. Whew. All right. Be patient. Students, what your instructor failed to tell you was there's a little bit easier way to get this glaze off the bottom. You have this tool in your toolkit. It's generally used for the wheel, but it's a trimming tool, and it's kind of sharp, and it gets down there. Oh, look at that. It really gets that solidified glaze from the bottom of your container, and it really helps speed this process along. So scrape it all up from the bottom with this tool, and don't tell your instructor I told you this trick, because he thinks you're going to be doing this for like a half hour, and it's going to really speed up the process, and you're all going to be doing great. All right, so have fun, and then stir it up all good and plenty with your stirring stick. All right, cool guys. All right.